Good morning, everybody. I suppose before the election, this will be the last minute. So can I say already, I wish you all the best of luck. For those who were standing again anyway. Got apologies this morning from Melvin, who's sunning himself, which is nice. I've got an echo there.
Yeah.
Brian.
Yeah, it's gone now. It's fine.
Christine, Anne, and David.
Yeah.
Any declarations of interest, please? No. I've got no urgent matters, thankfully. So we'll go to the minutes of the last meeting, which was on the 16th of December. And I'll go for accuracy first on page 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and 13. And for matters arising, on page 5 and 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. No matters arising. Can I have a show of hands that these are a correct record? Thank you very much. We're going to go now to agenda item 6, and Tony, you're going to take this.
Yeah, I'll kick off if I may, please, Madam Chair.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so
vary the order of business.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I have to tell you, we've jumped from 5 to 6 because Tony Ward has another meeting to go to, so that's why we're taking this first. Okay.
yeah.
Sorry.
Okay, yeah, fine. So we're here today. That's myself, obviously. Tony Ward should be here soon if he's not already.
Is already here, Tony.
He is good. Okay.
Tony's
And,
here.
Andy Clark as well. Okay, so we're here today to explain and answer any questions on our council policy on the maintenance and pesticide application to verges and hedges. It's pretty well exactly a year ago that we're here. It was February the 11th we were here last year, so 2 days short there. So you've got the report there. In the appendices, the first appendix 1 is our policy on virgin grass cutting. Appendix 2 is about weed spraying and control and various alternatives, and from the various alternatives we see really that we've got no real practical alternative to what we're doing at the moment. And in 3 there's a format best practice guide, goes into great detail, so I don't know whether you want to read all the way through that, but I'll hand over to Tony, then he'll say a few words. Thank you,
Tony, and I think everybody's read it. Hopefully you have, anyway.
Thank you, Tony. Thank you, Chair. I mean, just want to say, really, build on what Tony said. We tend to come to have a discussion about this.
Can't hear you, Tony.
Tony, just pop your camera off for a
As I
minute.
say, the report itself sets out what our...
Better. Thank you.
So are you struggling to hear me?
Yeah, it was just breaking up a bit.
I've turned my video off, Chair. Hopefully that will help. Yeah, so we have this discussion on an annual basis. So our policies, as Tony said, are attached to the report. Hopefully the report is fairly clear. It just describes our current position and our current policies. The one thing I would say is that obviously there is a significant link here to the climate change and ecology ambitions that the council have declared between now and 2030. And although we have the current position with our weed spraying treatments, and we don't currently see any viable alternative to doing what we're doing at the moment, that doesn't mean that we're not continuing to look at this, and we will continue to do so over the next, the years to come. And we do have an ambition to be able to move away from the use of these chemicals in future, and we hope that those alternatives will come on stream, and we continue to work very closely with the Countryside Services in planning and public protection, who work very closely with Street Scene to look at potential alternatives. And we very much hope in the years to come that we may be able to try some alternative methods with a view to to working towards those overall ecological ambitions. It's something that's very, very important to us as a service. But as I say, the request was made by members to bring this back for a discussion. So I think probably the thing for us to do is to open things out to members, and we can have a discussion and answer any questions, Chair, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So, Emrys, would you like to come in?
Diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd. Diolch, Tony.
Chair, and thank you, Tony, for your presentation. Just a couple of questions. I've got one in the first place with regards to maintenance and verges. I've got another question which I'll bring in later. Excuse me, I'm just having a drink of water. Paragraph 4.1 in the Welsh version, page 284, I think it's 272 in English, where you say that the main principle underpinning the policy is that verges must be managed to ensure the safety of all road users. And then it goes on to say that it says that more being addressed, and that is also referred to later on in the report, especially the comprehensive report. You will know, I suppose, Tony, that about the pavement by the side of the road, the A525 between Cantaba Farm and Jericho Lane in Ruthin. There's a very narrow path there. The pavement is very narrow. We've had lots of complaints lately. It's had lots of attention in the media, and an individual in town has taken it upon himself to improve the situation, and certainly is doing work that should have been done by the council itself, the county council. Numerous requests have been made for help with regards to this, and we've been told recently as the 3rd of August last year, that there's no funding to improve the situation. We're not talking about cutting grass here, we're talking about maintaining the soil at the base of the hedge that has come over the path. Very quickly after the attention and the publicity, the news has come out now that the work will be carried out in 6 weeks' time. Now, this causes confusion to local members. What is the situation with regards to this in general across the county? Are the county willing to maintain not only grass cutting, but also the land that supports that grass?
For me to respond to that question now, Chair?
Yes, please, if you would.
Okay. This is a kind of not necessarily directly related to this report, but it's a very specific kind of issue. And I know with this one in particular, we had to have some discussions with other parts of the council, because we were looking into whether there was a possibility of that particular route having potential as an active travel route, and if so, you know, we didn't want to undertake any significant amount of work which would be abortive or kind of, you know, wasted if that did have potential, and we wondered whether it did. And then we know there was some local support for that. We've come to the conclusion as a council, it's not something that I lead on, active travel, but we've come to the conclusion that this probably wouldn't be suitable or wouldn't be eligible or a priority for funding for an active travel route, which is now why now we've got that clarity. We have made plans to do some work there to improve that situation, and Emrys obviously referred to that. The issue we have in relation to generally across the whole county is one that you would probably expect. You know, we have a budget that we have, and we have a huge amount of highway network and therefore associated footpaths, you know, a huge amount, and we have to prioritize that budget in order to maintain that balance between you know, maintaining health and safety and looking at and prioritizing what the most important issues are at the time. And we simply don't have the resource to respond to everything that we might want to respond to immediately, and we have to, you know, we have to look at things and then get, you know, work out when and how we can do them, which is what we've done in relation to that specific issue. Now, that may have taken longer than people would have liked, and I can understand that. But again, you know, we actually have quite a small resource currently to address these issues across the whole county, and it is a challenge. I think we're doing our best. And as I say, we have got a plan in place to address that specific issue now. I hope that answers the question.
Yes, thank you. Emrys, did you want to come back on that? You're on mute.
Dwi'n ymwybodol bod 'na gyfyngiadau
I'm
arian.
conscious that there are financial constraints, but what concerns me is the message that is being conveyed to us as local members, and the message that we read about in the press then without us being aware of the changes in the situation. It doesn't make our job easy as local members, and certainly we want to try and explain to the public what's going on. But generally, could I say, in terms of health and safety, we have got, and I'm sure this is true across the county, but obviously I'm going to concentrate on Ruthin. We've got areas here, pavements and so on, that are being neglected to a large extent because of this lack of funding. And when work is carried out on the roads, it's the road that's given most attention rather than the pavement quite often. Recently in the county, we have been able to earmark extra funding towards highways. And I certainly hope that this money will also be used to improve our footpaths and pavements and so on across the county. And of course, naturally, in terms of myself in the Ruthin area, I can see that Bobby Feely's hand is up, and I'm sure she will want to add to what I've just said. Thank you.
Could I just come back, Chair, just to say that this isn't actually the purpose of this paper today, and you know, Andy Clark has come with me to present this paper today, but this issue doesn't fall under Andy's remit and isn't the subject of this paper. Tim Towers is responsible for highway and footpath maintenance, and it's not actually, doesn't come under Andy Clark's remit at all. And this paper is about verge cutting and weed spraying. So that whole debate about highways and how the budget is used and the balance between footpaths and roads is obviously important, but it's not why we've come here today.
Okay, point taken there, Tony. Just to say, I did notice in Sarn Lane leading to the hospital that they are cutting back the overgrowth from the verge onto the road. I noticed that when I was there yesterday, particularly, and I thought, oh, that's good. So Tony,
The other thing I would say, Chair, is that me and Tim are currently coming round to all the mags to have a discussion about the highways programme. So Emrys, you know, we'll be able to have that discussion in the mag if you like.
I take your point about the nature of today's meeting. I appreciate that, but I am focusing on 4.1, but it's about safety of users of payments as well. But there we are. We have. I said what I need to say. Thank you.
oh, thank you, Emrys. So Bobby, you want to come in on the same? But
well, thank you, Chair. As Emrys has brought it up, I do appreciate, Tony, that this is not strictly speaking the reason for your report today. But I would just like to support Emrys because, yes, it may come to a MAGS meeting, but as you know, MAGS meetings are closed. And this is an open meeting that gives the members a chance to air their views about certain things in the open. And I would just like to support Emrys because we did everything we could. Emrys, myself, and Hugh went to see it with Tim Towers, who said it wasn't worthy of putting in the budget. But it was at the same time that a man, perhaps he shouldn't have been doing it, but he was enjoying it and he was making money for charity. But it did put him in a difficult situation, and it puts local members in a difficult situation. And I would like more understanding from an officer point of view of how difficult it is to explain to people that such a simple thing. And I might add, this is a route I have used myself on quite a few occasions, and you can only walk single file on a path that you should be double, and you certainly can't walk a pram along it, so it is dangerous. And we are always talking about health and well-being and walking and safer routes, and here we are with something so in your face that everybody sees it on a daily basis being managed by a member of the public. So I support Emrys for bringing this up, even though it's, shall we say, slightly off-piste. And apologies, Tony, I know this is not your remit this morning, but I hope you will be understanding of members' concerns.
Bobby, I have no.
Let's move on to the actual thing now, because I've got a few people wanting questions on the actual paper that we've received and the report. So can I ask now for Rachel to come in?
Thank you, Chair. My question was an environmentally sort of aimed question. So to the officer, respective officer, so glyphosates, how do they affect bees? Obviously, as we are classed as a bee-friendly county, and is Denbighshire comfortable with carrying on to use this kind of pesticide? Our natural water courses having the glyphosates. Thank you.
Question, Tony?
Okay, Rachel started to crack up a little bit there, but I got the gist of the question, I think. And Andy will no doubt want to come in here, but it's just as a kind of overview. I think in an ideal world, we wouldn't feel the need to use these chemicals. Given the very clear strategy that the council has around climate change and ecology, the issue we have at the moment is finding a viable alternative to do what is a very essential job. We can't afford not to treat weeds on the network. It would be devastating if we didn't. But at the moment, we're struggling to find a viable alternative that will do that job. So I think when you say, are we comfortable with continuing to do what we're doing? We are comfortable with that on the basis that we need to do that job. And unfortunately, we're not so we're not in a position to do anything different at the moment. We hope that we will be in a position to do so in future. And I think every authority in Wales and the UK would probably say the same. But to say the position is quite difficult at the moment. Andy, is anything you wanted to come in and say around that?
Thanks, Tony. Just to add to that, really, most of our weed spraying treatments we have reduced over the years now from 4 to 2 on an annual basis, which has made a big difference. Most of our spraying treatments are limited to urban areas within the 30-mile-an-hour zones. So we're not treating the whole county here. And the concentrations of glyphosate are very strictly governed. It's in the report. I think we're actually using 300 ml per litre, but it's not. They are very small concentrations of glyphosate. We've been doing quite a lot of work on this with our existing contractor. They've undertaken trials for Wirral Council of various alternatives as to try and remove the emphasis and reliance on glyphosate. So we are working with them and we've working alongside Countryside colleagues in Countryside Services to come up with some trial sites as well as housing. So we are looking at viable alternatives at the moment to try and reduce the need to be using glyphosate on a county-wide basis, really.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. It was just the second part of the question, which was about the natural water courses. How does it affect that? And do you do work with NRW regarding that as well?
At the moment, the use of glyphosate is approved. We're not doing anything different to what our neighbouring authorities do at the present moment in time. All our policies and procedures are open to review. And we have had discussions with the NRW in the past in regard to the use of chemicals. And no concerns have been raised at the moment because we are compliant. That's not to say that we should carry on, as Tony has mentioned, that we should carry on doing what we've always done. We are trying to look for other alternatives, and we'll continue with that work at the moment. We are conscious of the point you've made about we do get requests about biodiversity and the effect on bees and other wildlife as well, not just the bees. And we've done a lot of good work with Countryside Services, particularly in regard to the wildflower sites as well, because we're heavily involved with those as well. So as Tony mentioned at the start of the meeting, this all links to the council's climate change and ecological aspirations, really.
Thank you, Andy. Okay, Rachel, I'll move on.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Andy.
Thank you.
Joan.
Oh, thank you, Chair. Mine's a question, obviously, about the weed spraying and coming from the urban area. And I do know how important it is in the rural areas. That it seems to be huge problems in the rural areas, but in the urban areas, I and all the members in Brill do have particular problems with the streets and back entries of weeds growing everywhere. I did have an occasion at the end of what I would have called the growing season, September time-ish, last year, to go into a street that I hadn't been in for a few months because of all the issues that were restrictions that were in. And when I went down this particular street, it is Princess Street, Tony, Andy, it was like a garden. The whole street was green with growth of every kind. It was really quite shocking, and I was really surprised. And I did report it straight away, and it was dealt with, I have to say. But that must have been in and above the contract that had been laid. So, my question is, do we liaise with the street scene officers to identify any problems that are existing in Drill. And I know that we do have town members and that could liaise with the street scene people as well in the growing season. And when we do lay a contract with a contractor, can we have a programme of work? Because in the growing months, we have, where all the real members I know are inundated with calls reporting, oh, the back entries, all the different areas are massively overgrown with weeds, and some years it's worse than others, and of course last year was quite bad. But if we could have some sort of programme where the weeds, the contractor was going to spray, where we could have some influence then in that, if indeed it hadn't been carried out as we quite expected it to be, or if indeed if they've just missed it out completely, it would be a way of trying to pick up the areas of need. So I'm just wondering how that can be dealt with, and I do appreciate it might well be coming back to Mags, and that's where we could put a little bit of detail into what perhaps the members do require in their wards. But there we are. Thank you, Chair, and I hope, Tony, you will be able to answer my questions. Thank you.
Okay, Jen, I'm going to ask Andy to come in because he is the street scene team, or he manages the street scene team, so he's in a better position to respond to this. But Andy, if you don't mind.
Yeah, there's a few things, if I may, there in response, really, Joe. Just in terms of the contract itself, the contract is let through the works unit team, which is part of our service as well. So we work very closely with the street scene managers and the coordinators. Normally, the weed spraying is carried out twice per year at set timescales throughout the year, and we start pretty much from north to south. So we'll start in Prestatyn, work through the Prestatyn Mag, through Will, and then so on to the south of the county. You should have been receiving updates from an officer called Ethan Jones. You know, I'd like to think that our communication is very good. We normally get a programme of works for the weed spraying and the grass cutting, and we try to give as much advance notification as we can to say which areas are due to be done next. So if you're not receiving that, if you can let me know, and I'll make sure we follow up on that. We also do the same for the cyclical maintenance that we carry out in May on the A525 and the A547. To those MAG areas and members where they're obviously relevant, of course. So the communication is already there. Those arrangements are already in place. And in fairness, our contractors that do the work for us are normally very good. But as I say, I'm more than willing to follow that up for you if that remains an issue. In terms of the supervision of the works and the making sure that the quality of the work is of the necessary standard, we do have our street scene coordinators that inspect the areas. That's the reason why we have the advance notification, so that they can follow up behind the contractor. And we do have a supervisor that works very closely with both the grass cutting and the weed spraying contractors. I think in terms of last year, you know, timing, because I've already mentioned we've dropped from 4 to 2 treatments. Timing's really crucial. And last year, you know, we had issues with, you know, it was a lot warmer. The severity of the winter wasn't as bad, and we had a lot of warm and wet weather, which is ideal growing conditions. And what we've done, we've obviously lessons learned on last season. We've already had a pre-contract meeting with the weed spraying contractor, and we've booked our dates already. So we intend to go late April and again in July. Whereas last year, the tail end, the second treatment, it was too late in the year. It was mid to late September, and the weather conditions, you know, we were getting lots of days where we were having to cancel the treatments because you know, it's strictly governed in terms of our health and safety and our risk assessments. And if the wind is too high, or if there's any dampness on the roads, we won't treat. So that did cause a lot of problems towards the end of the season last year. So we've picked up on that this year. We did have it because the growth was a lot more advanced last season. We did have some areas where we did have some issues with, but we were liaising with the contractor to get them to revisit those sites. It should also be noted as well, and you know, just going back to Councillor Rachel Flynn's comment earlier, we are trying to use other equipment in some areas. We've been fortunate to buy some weed ripping equipment, so we have been using them in some areas, and as we've been using them in the alleyways as well, Joan, to good success as well, I must add. We've made such a difference, and we've been working with community organisations as well, and with the police to some of those areas. Certainly Princess Street was one of those such areas, the alleyways at the back there, which make a big difference. So I hope that answers all your questions that you raised.
Thank you. Yes, it does. But hopefully we will have better results this year. I do thank you, Andy. Some of the work, the weed killing is problematic. I do appreciate that, because it is determined by climate, and if we have got a particularly hot and wet month, they grow in my garden like fury. So I do understand the problems that we've got, but we've got contractors that are out there doing a good job mainly, but some of the areas are certainly neglected, and thank you for picking them up. I do appreciate it. But you've just mentioned one problematic area, and consequently, if we liaise perhaps with the landlords there, because the landlord in that particular street is predominantly our provider, it is Clwyd Allen, and if we liaised with I'm sure they get reports back from their tenants that we shouldn't have these problematic areas in the future. We should communicate better with the community and experience what they experience and try to alleviate it in the future. But I do thank you, Andy. I do appreciate the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Tony, did you want to come back? Tony Ward.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, Chair, thank you for coming to me. We're obviously we're in a little bit of a dilemma with the weed spraying treatments. I think, as Andy said, you know, we've reduced from 4 to 3 treatments, then down to 2 annual treatments over recent years, and obviously that's good from an environmental perspective, because we're using a lot less chemicals on an annual basis to treat our weeds. The trouble is, it's much harder to control the weeds with 2 annual treatments than it was with 4. So, you know, that we are seeing, and you will see, as we do, more issues with weeds now than you would have done several years ago when we were doing 4 treatments. But it'd obviously be very difficult for us to reverse that strategy now and to start increasing the number of treatments again, increasing the amount of chemicals that we use, because, you know, that would be hard to justify from an environmental perspective as much as anything else. So it is a dilemma, but you know, we recognise what you recognise, that, you know, we do often have issues now because we're not treating them as much as we used to. No real answer there, but I just wanted to highlight that, really.
Thank you, Tony. No, Emrys and Rachel, you've still got your hands up.
Yes, yes, I need to speak. Mine's come back up.
Yes, I'm waiting for a question as well.
Yeah. Can I go now, Chair?
I've got my hand up as well, Chair, or did have.
Yes, I've got you coming. I just wondered whether those were old hands or not, Rhys, but you can come in now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. Our discussion this morning seems to be very wide-ranging, but can I break the tradition, please, and come back to the document that we're meant to be scrutinizing. I've read this document. I'm very happy with it. I'm happy to approve it. I'm not sure whether, as a scrutiny committee, we need to have this coming back every year, but I'm very happy with this report and its contents. Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to come back to something which Councillor Rachel Flynn said. As I don't know, I may be the only beekeeper in the room, but I have no problem with glyphosate. Glyphosate is a systemic herbicide. I'm very concerned about insecticides, but glyphosate I don't have any concerns over. Neither does the US Environmental Protection Organization or the EU Food Safety Organization. And I think these attempts by our officers to respond to concerns by thinking of all these other methods of getting rid of weeds, I don't think they are going to go anywhere. Glyphosate is a chemical which does the work very, very well. And for anyone who is concerned as to whether it's a carcinogen or not, it's in the same group of probably carcinogen chemicals as is the wood from the smoke from your wood burner, the creosote from painting your shed, red meat, and tea and coffee over the temperature of 65 degrees. Thank you, Chair. Speech over.
Thanks, Rhys. Are we then to expect a nice jar of honey next time we all meet? Well, it would be very nice, wouldn't it, group?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well,
Rhys. Yeah.
Yeah, the price has gone sky high this year, Chair.
Oh, local honey, couldn't beat it. Thank you. Emrys, did you say you wanted?
I did, yes. I must admit, after hearing Rhys now,
just, you know, quickly, please.
Yes, it will be after hearing Rhys now. I'm not sure whether. Yeah, I'm not sure how useful this question is going to be, but I'm going to try it in any case. Glyphosate, yes, I'm having representation from people wondering why we are using it. There are alternatives, I believe, including salt and vinegar, and not of the crisp variety. I'm just asking, can the council not be selective in its use of chemicals in order to eradicate or control weeds, especially in parklands, etc., where last year there was weed spraying around the foot of trees, for example, in the parkland, where dogs are at the moment allowed to run freely. And as we know, animals do go there. I don't know enough whether it's dangerous for animals to use. I think there's a warning on the can of Roundup for the first 24 hours, but in any case, that's beside the point. Can the council not be more selective than they are possibly when it comes to areas like parkland and things where control of weeds is essential? Thank you.
Is Andy going to answer that?
Just in terms of you've mentioned the vinegar, acetic acid. That is one of the trial options that we're working with our contractor at the moment. They've done a trial over in Wirral, in the Wirral region. The only downside of that is the smell, of course. So it's there are downsides to some of these other alternative methods. You know, that is one of the areas that we're quite keen to trial. I guess the recent conversation we had with our contractor was that we're going to select a site somewhere where we do have issues with weeds, and we're going to treat half with glyphosate and half with this acetic acid option and see how it performs. But we're not going to just look at those two in isolation. We are going to look at other options as well. So as I say, rest assured, we are taking this seriously, and we are trying to do what we can to identify suitable alternatives, really.
Right, thank you, Andy. Now, Rachel, did you want to come back? Very
yes, please, Chair. Just a question for Andy, really. As this is partnerships, we have on our ward in Prestatyn, we obviously part of my ward backs onto the railway line, and we've had an issue with Japanese knotweed. a couple of years ago. And I think the general consensus is that Network Rail aren't keeping on top of their weed spraying. And that's something that I would like Denbighshire to take back and approach Network Rail about, obviously, because if we are going to lessen the amount of treatments that we have each year, probably not from as many that we're having, I would just like to know that the issue won't get worse. So that's something I'd like Denbighshire to take back, if that's okay.
Thank you, Rachel. I think that's something, as you know, you can take up outside of here as well, really. Yeah. Okay, thank you. Merrick, I will let you in now.
Madam Cadeirydd, a diolch yn fawr i chi.
Chair, thank you very much for your time. Could I also thank Tony Ward for confirming that we are discussing maintenance policies for verges and hedges and spreading of thanks for confirming that. Going back to page 284 for 4.1, and it does state, doesn't it, the main principle that the verges must be controlled in order to ensure health, safety of all users, all road users. This doesn't mention pesticides only, but generally. If I could know what the reason is for verges, because you posed a question when Councillor Emrys Wynne raised a problem. What is the meaning of sides of roads, verges in this document? Turning over to Appendix 1, page 2.288 in the report, 1.6. At the end, I would like you to consider that more words are required in point 1.6 at the end, where it says for the convenience of for pedestrians to be able to stand on the tarmac road and to avoid cyclists being struck by branches. That is a problem in the area outside towns or in towns where hedges are growing over. And 3.2, a cut greater than 1 metre wide may be required at specific locations at the discretion of the Highway Authority. Why aren't they cut? You cut about 18 inches of grass and then you leave the growth that is often on the council's land, not on private land. You allow that to grow over across the road, and I feel that should be changed. And it shows in Appendix 3 to 317 Part B, Zone A, swath cut of limited wildlife value, that's what you call it. Also, obviously, there is a plough, a machine that cuts the sides of the verge over the tarmac. Thank you, Tony, because I don't think where else to discuss these issues except under this policy, unless you've got a different policy, of course, to deal with pavements and so on. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Mary. Who's going to reply?
Yeah, do you want me to come in, try and answer some of those?
You're on mute, Jeanette.
If Tony, you want to come in first?
Yeah, no, I was going to ask Andy if he wanted to respond first, and I'll see if there's anything I need to pick up after. That's okay.
Oh.
Okay, there's a few things there, Eric. I hope I can try and cover them all. just in terms of the hedges, first of all, a lot of the council-owned hedges are cut within the existing contract. I think we've discussed this before, where we have issues with hedges that are owned by that is obviously the landowner's responsibility. We as a council can certainly be involved in that process to follow those concerns up, as we've done in the past. I think the recent meeting we had, I think it was the MAG meeting where this came up. You know, we are trying to be proactive as much as we can, and we have got officers following up any specific concerns that members raise, and we will certainly contact those landowners to resolve these issues. In terms of the cut, we do exercise the right, which is listed within the document, to ensure that the health and safety issues are largely making sure that we maintain visibility at junctions for the road user as well as the pedestrian, to make sure that, you know, if we do have valid concerns in some areas, then we exercise the right to cut those areas more frequently as deemed necessary. But again, that's subject to the discretion of the supervisor that's assessing the complaint. We do check all the areas after the grass cutting on the first cut and the second cut later in the year, and all the areas are inspected on a regular basis to make sure that we don't have ongoing concerns. And in fairness, we do normally follow up all those issues because obviously they're health and safety matters. Again, just in terms of the grass cutting, we do in some areas cut back to boundary, mainly for visibility reasons, but we only tend to do that every 2 to 3 years. But again, we don't do it across the whole network. We only cut back the 1 metre swathe, which is in line with the policy. A lot of areas, it's not necessary to cut back more than that 1 metre, and it obviously that's in keeping with the work that we're doing on the wildflower sites as well as the biodiversity as well. We don't think we should be cutting back too far because there is no need for that. But again, if health and safety matters are raised, then we will obviously look at those. I think that covers most of the comments that you made, Merrick. I hope it does.
Happy, Merrick?
Not really, Chair, but I think me and Andy will have to have a quiet chat together about what we call 1 metre width, etc. Diolch yn fawr, Andy.
Thank you, Merrick.
Just to come in there, Andy, on something you said, you know, where you leaving it for 2 or 3 years where it grows and grows, I thought that if you cut it back at least once a year or 18 months, that the meadow effect would be much better. I think if you just leaving it to grow on and on, I think we'll end up with just a lot of grassy, ugly sites. Am I right, or am I wrong?
Yeah. I think a lot of our sites, the back to boundary, the width there isn't sufficient to warrant that anyway. A lot of the roadside sites are quite narrow in places, so the 1 metre swathe, it isn't much more than the 1 metre swathe. The exception is junctions, really. We would, you know, and also the cyclic maintenance work that we do on the dual carriageway. You know, the policy on that used to be that we would cut back every 3 years back to boundary. We try to follow that where necessary, more for safety reasons, and it's also a fire risk. If the grass gets too long, you know, there's a potential issue there as well. So, but you are right. You know, what we tend to do with the biodiversity in the grass cutting, we let the grass grow, and then it has to be cut within this specific time period towards the end of August or early September to enhance the area and allow it to grow and develop as best as possible, really.
Yeah, I didn't want to really touch on the meadow effect, but it is important that it is more pleasing than everybody ringing us up and saying, oh gosh, it looks an absolute mess with lots of grass. So I did think that cutting back more regular would enhance it rather than make it look right mess. And remembering it also, long grass, you get fly tipping, and it can become a problem as well, really. So I would hope that you would be able to, within your budget, think about cutting it back probably more regularly than 3 years. That's hopeful. Okay, everybody, I'm going to go to the recommendation. I think we've really talked really well on it. I know Emrys wants to come back, but I do need to move on. If you can make it just one word.
Very quick, yes. Just to confirm now, please. Grass is cut, and then it's often left to rot itself into the ground, and it's supposed to be beneficial. It does have its problems as well. Can I confirm that I've read it correctly, that cut and collect will become more of the usual practice from now on, to enable the other wild plants to flourish within these areas which are cut?
Thank you, Emrys. I'll just let you reply, Andy. Yes.
Yeah, in answer to that, Emrys, yes, yes, it will. We currently have 75 sites that we've been working in conjunction with Countryside Services. That will be expanded to 105 this season. A large proportion of our roadside verges are included within this project, and the cut and collect regime, basically we've been successful in gaining funding from Welsh Government to buy a specific piece of equipment to cut and collect the grass at all these sites, and that will be done late August, early September.
Right, thank you, Andy. I'm going to go to the recommendations now. We've given it a good debate, and I'm pleased about that, and thank you for all your answers, Andy and Tony. But the recommendation is that the committee examine the current policy and make comments and recommendations as deemed appropriate. And I hope you'll take some of those on board. Okay. Anybody proposing that for me? Reese, thank you. And Rachel seconded, thank you. All right, thanks very much.
Welcome back, Pab.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Now I'm going to go back to item 5. And Bobby's here. Is Anne Lloyd with us? Bobby, you're here. Is Anne Lloyd?
Yeah, I'm here. Yeah. I'm not sure. I know Nicola's here. I'm not quite sure. It could be Catherine, Rhiann. It could be Anne Lloyd. I'm honestly not sure who's here, but I know Nicola's here.
I'm just seeing yourself then. And,
okay.
Nicola. So
I can kick it off for you.
Hugh, where are you? I can't see you either.
He's here as well.
I'm here, baby.
Welcome, Hugh. Okay, are you going to start, Bobby?
Yes, I'll start. I'll turn my video off just in case of problems.
Thank you.
Okay, good morning to Jeanette and everyone. As you can see, this is a fairly lengthy, detailed report, but I'll just give a broad, quick overview to set the scene, so to speak. The Social Services and Wellbeing Act, which I'm sure you're sick to death of hearing about, 2014, placed a duty on local authorities and health boards to develop a joint assessment for the care and support needs of regional population across Wales. This is done on a 5-yearly basis, and our last one was 2017. The North Wales Population Needs Assessment has been produced by the North Wales Regional Partnership Board and was a joint exercise of the 6 local authorities, BCU Health Board and Public Health Wales. As you will see, the Regional Population Needs Assessment has been split into various thematic chapters, including children, young people, older people, etc. I won't go into them all. Attached in the Appendix 2 are the Denbighshire priorities, which will be included in the final version. The population needs assessment aims to improve our understanding of the population across North Wales and how their needs will evolve and change over the coming years. As you see, this has been an expansive piece of work undertaken to understand and take in the views of the population. There has been a wide-ranging consultation with organisations, partners, and around 350 individual people who all took part in a regional survey. The feedback received has informed the 2022 population needs assessment, which comprises information about the care and support needs of people in North Wales and the support needs of carers. This is a draft for your consideration, but as it is often the case with Welsh Government, the timescale is pretty tight. It has been discussed at length in the RPB and is currently being taken through the other 5 North Wales local authorities and the Health Board. The report then has to be signed off by the Regional Partnership Board before going to Welsh Government by the end of March. And I must, before I finish, say thank you to everyone involved. This indeed has been an extensive piece of work. And we would welcome any queries or questions. And I'm not quite sure who's here, but you know, if it's Nicola and me, it's Nicola and me, but there might be others. I'm not quite sure, but please feel free to comment on the report as you see it. Thank you, Jeanette. That's enough from me, I think.
Oh, thanks, Bobby. Does Hugh want to come in?
No, thank you, Chair. I think that the Right Honourable Bobby Feely has done a cracking job there, and I think we'll let the scrutiny take place, I think.
Okay. And Nicola?
Anne has joined us now, and Anne has been leading on this piece of work. I don't have anything further to add, actually, as Bobby's covered an awful lot of that, so we're happy to go straight to questions unless Anne wanted to add anything specific.
No, I just think there's just some key local messages for Denbighshire, which obviously we included in the paper, because obviously it is a North Wales regional document, but each local authority is going to have some key local messages in there. So it was just to highlight that we do have some priorities that we've included as part of the population needs assessment. But other than that, just happy to take questions or answer any queries.
Okay. Anybody, any questions? Emrys? Would you like to come in, Emrys?
There we go. Yeah, I've got my voice there now. Yes, mae gen I nifer o gwestiynau mewn gwirionedd.
There's a number of questions, really. I won't ask them all, but thank you, Bobby, for the report. It says in the report, I think it's page 58 in the English, 60 in Welsh, and I've gone right down to the end of the paragraph, section D, where it says the child is unlikely to achieve one or more of the child's personal outcomes unless, one, the local authority provides or arranges care and support to meet the need, or the local authority enables the need to be met by making direct payments. My question is, what provision is there for young people in Denbighshire? And could we have an example, a general example? You don't want an example where it's possible to recognise individuals, but general examples of the provision that's available. And also my second question attached to this, are there different provisions for those children who have special needs or more complicated needs?
Okay, I'll take that question because Anne's from adults, and Rhiannon will be joining us at full council when this attends full council.
Nicola, James is here, sorry.
Oh, is James there?
Yeah.
Oh, he is. Sorry, James, welcome.
Thank you. Do you want me to take that one now then, Nicola, yeah?
Yes, please.
the answer is there are provisions in place. Obviously, some of those have had challenges in operating over the last 2 years because of the restrictions. But we do have a range of community provisions that are provided for different cohorts. Some examples would be young carers.
Because you're breaking up. Thank you. Sorry. Just turn your screen off so we can hear
Okay.
you. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll say that. We do have provision for different cohorts of children with different needs. So some examples of the cohorts of children that we have would be young carers, children with disabilities and complex needs, and of course different age groups of children as well. So for example, young carers, we do have a range of groups that are run by our commission service, Wicked Young Carers, and they run sort of a variety of things from weekly groups, one-to-one support, and occasionally things like out-of-bound visits and trips out and things like that as well. For children with disabilities, we have a range of things. For the most children with the most complex disabilities or health issues, we commission services through Bernardo's Cymru to deliver a holiday play scheme for those children. And for children with lower level needs, we run a work in partnership with the childcare setting. So we run some sessions specifically for children with additional needs during the holidays. The types of things that we do does change depending on the funding available. We take advantage of funding streams that come in. So for example, over the summer, we had the Welsh Government provided the Summer of Fun funding, and currently until the end of March, we've got Winter of Wellbeing funding for children with disabilities. So there are a variety of additional types of things being run at the moment, specifically for children of young people, including music sessions, dance sessions for sort of deaf and visually impaired children, day activities within partnership with the Denbighshire Leisure Services and Stand North Wales in the leisure centres across Denbighshire. So there are a variety of things going on at the moment, perhaps more than usual because of the additional funding that's coming in from the Welsh Government. But most of the services provided that are out there are, elements that have been developed through working with the third sector and community support in the main. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Diolch yn fawr iawn. Thank you for a very comprehensive answer. Diolch yn fawr iawn.
I can't see any of the hands.
Mae gen I gwestiwn arall, Gadeirydd. I've got another question.
I have got another question, Chair, if I'm allowed.
I got another question if I'm allowed. Sy'n Rhys.
Okay.
Am I doing it or is Rhys doing it?
You go first.
Yeah, okay. Dyna fo, diolch yn fawr. Os gai sôn wan...
Thank you. If I could mention now children who looked after children. Pages 73 and 74, tables 23 and 24 refer to the number of location placements in the year for children looked after in 2021, and then table 24 gives special attention to the number of children have care within the authority, and that is where I'm going to come in, if I may. Denbighshire County Council, it shows that 71% of the children who are looked after have care within the local authority, and then that is higher than 68% for Wales and North Wales. Do Denbighshire County Council, are the officers of Denbighshire County Council happy with the figure of 71%, or is there a programme in place where it might be possible to bring that closer to the 100%, which would be ideal, but we know ideally, realistically, that sort of 80% or more would be acceptable too. Thank you.
Can I answer that one, Chair?
Yes.
We always look where possible to keep a child local if the circumstances allow, because obviously keeping them in their local community, local school, friends, networks, all of that is really important. But sometimes those placements, often directed by the court, may be out of county for a specific reason, and that reason is usually in the child's best interests. So it might be another family member, a kinship carer, who lives out of county, or it might be a specialised placement, which is, you know, a particularly niche provision which doesn't exist within our county. So it's a mixed picture, but we always look to make a placement in the child's best interests. And if we can do that within our local community, then we do see the benefits of that for local children. But if we do place out of county, it's because we believe that's the right thing for the child. Diolch.
Yeah.
Thank you, Nicola. Rhys, would you like to come in now?
Thank you, Chair. I love this sort of report with graphs and tables and charts, as you know, so I don't know how long you've got, but I've been trying to shape my questions as to its relevance to us here in Denbighshire. But I've got a number of questions. If I could just have a brief answer to each one, and then I'll move on, if you're happy with that, Chair. I'm looking at page 36 at table 1 there. Adults at risk by local authority areas. And it's just a very general question to start off with. It's always interesting with data whether there's been an actual increase in something or a decrease, or whether it's a more efficient way of collecting data. So is there a view on that? We can see that the number of adults at risk has increased in, I think, all local authority areas. Is that because of better data collection, or is there, as we suspect, an increase? Thank you. I don't know who
I'll
wants to
answer that one.
Okay.
Each question individually, because I know you said you've got quite a few. So
yes, so these are reported, so it's not actual incidences, because they'll be investigated. I think we have to look at this in the context of it's really good if people have concerns to report those concerns. So we have, as a region and as a local authority, we've actively encouraged people to report where they suspect an individual is at risk. So there is a certain amount which is due to that, but also the change in legislation which came about in this time with the Social Services and Wellbeing Wales Act, but then also the relaunch of the Wales safeguarding procedures. So I think there's an awful lot here, which is around better communication, better relationships with partners, and a more transparent referral system. So I think that's what these figures will show you, Rhys.
Okay, thank you, Nicola. In the light of what you've just said, if we look at table 2, the number of children on the Child Protection Register, there's quite a decline in some counties like Anglesey, Gwynedd and Flintshire, and a slight increase in Denbighshire. So again, what lies behind that sort of figure? And this isn't relevant to Denbighshire, but for Conwy's figure to actually appear to have doubled, is that because of the lack of reporting previously? Thank you, Nicola.
I can't comment on another local authority's figures. I wouldn't want to do that because I'm not exactly sure. In terms of Denbighshire's figures, our numbers in Denbighshire have remained relatively the same, between kind of 75 and 90, and we're still round about that figure now. So that's, you know, I think that's a consistent figure, which is something we strive for. There has been a national push from Welsh Government to reduce the numbers of children on the looked after register, and so again, you know, no one comes into working in this arena to take children into care unless it's absolutely necessary. But we do see variations in numbers, we do see fluctuations. you know, a family moving into the area, a large family, 5, 6, 7 children, if they all need to go onto the register, then, you know, that can make a big difference to figures within Denbighshire, because we're one of the smaller local authorities. So again, there's always a story behind these figures, and, you know, Rhiann and in the corporate parenting forum would have no problem in talking you through some of the circumstances that have led to our increases and decreases over time. But for me, the positive message is, you know, I have absolute confidence that our practitioners do the right thing for the child. We only register children when it's absolutely necessary and it's in their best interests.
Okay, thank you very much. With your patience, Chair, just 2 brief questions. I'm going to move right towards the end of the report, table 41, page 147. The percentage of adults participating in physical activity. First column, active for less than 30 minutes in the previous week. And I realized that a lot of this is self-reporting. Am I right? People who've responded to a questionnaire, I'm not sure where these figures come from. And the figure for Denbighshire is higher than anywhere else. So 37% say that they're less active for less than 30 minutes in the previous week. I was just wondering whether we should refer all of this to Denbighshire Leisure.
I think some of these figures have come from health. So health have had input to some of these figures. So I would have thought it sounds like it's been done on the basis of a survey. But I can get that checked out for definite to see where the figures come from. But I know some of the health related figures have come for BCU on some of their statistics. So, but I can get that checked and we can confirm exactly where the figures came from.
Okay, I mean, it's a serious question. I was just quite surprised that the figure was so high. But if you go on to table 42, I was very pleased to see that we've got more teetotal people in Denbighshire than any other county.
Right. Okay.
Denbighshire 35% report as not drinking alcohol. There we are. I'm just showing that I've read this, and I'm very interested in data, but I'm quite puzzled as to the sources of some of this data and what it's actually showing. But it's a very interesting report, and in terms of the necessity for this data as we move on with our corporate plan into the new council. I mean, I think this is very, very important, and it's a basis for all sorts of different plans for the coming 5 and 10 years. So I think it's a very important document and a very interesting one, and an awful lot to take in. So thank you very much for that report. Thank you, Chair.
I agree with you. It's a really in-depth report, and it covers everything that we want to see, doesn't it? I mean, and it is, I enjoyed reading it, to be honest, because it highlighted things that I hadn't really thought about. So I'm sure, Rhys, I knew you would have read it thoroughly, as all of us would have. And I'd like to bring Joan in now.
Thank you, Chair. One of my questions has been answered on the looked after children, but first of all, I would like to thank the officers for this really comprehensive draft report. So that means that, you know, it is a live document and it can be added so in the future. So I do welcome it. And thank the officers for bringing it to us. But going on the questions on the looked after children, Nicola did answer the questions, some of them, but going on from that, how we're still having huge impact on the council of out of county placements. I don't know whether that would be relevant to the report, but it has to be taken into consideration because it plays a huge part and it's so expensive. And we were to bridge the gap, as it were, in making some provision within our county. I didn't see anything in the report that touched on that, Nicola. So I just wonder, could you touch on that? And the other one about activity is really quite important, because I do find myself with not as active as I used to be. And so I can imagine that someone with really physical and problems as they grow older. So my other question is that are we now going to lead on daycare provision, or if we're not going to do that, how are we supporting the independent providers of daycare? Because I think that this might well be something in the future that we should be plugging into, that has been dropped off, if you like, over the years. Because we were going down another path. If you remember, Nicola, we were enabling. We weren't leading on this. So could you just answer us where we as a county are moving in them two directions? Thank you.
Okay, I'll pick up the out of county placements, and if Anne can pick up the daycare issue. And James may want to come in on the out of county placements. I think we always look where possible to provide care for a child with their own family, if it's safe to do so, or with foster care. And therefore, you know, provision within a children's home is something we'll consider, but we do try and exhaust other options first. So therefore, you know, there are providers of children's residential care that operate in our county, and therefore there's more provision than we require ourselves. So there are children placed in the county from other parts of Wales and other parts of the UK. It will be interesting to see. Welsh Government are currently looking at a not-for-profit change to children's residential provision in Wales. Yeah. Whilst I support the principle of that, I do have concerns. Oh, sorry, I'll turn my video off. I think it's the Chamber's speakers on.
Someone.
Yeah, I'm okay now. So I do have concerns that it will drive out some of our good providers of children's residential care, but that is something we'll be keeping a very close eye on. Does that answer the question around the out of county placements?
Yeah, it's always a very sensitive issue, isn't it? Yes. And how we commission them and the stuff in and around that. So I'm always very mindful that when we commission a place, if indeed a child is in our care, and we commission an outside placement, out of county placement, that is, for their immediate needs, I'm always mindful of the cost, because do we still have to pay for their placement in county, even though we're sending them out of county for their own safety for a while? Have I made sense there, Nicola? I know what I'm trying to say.
Yes. I don't think we double pay, because you know, we pay for a placement that a child is at, but then obviously, you know, there will be support for the family who remain here, or you know, there'll be circumstances that each individual case would need to consider. One of the things that you will all be aware of, I hope, is the development within Athol,
yes,
which is a residential assessment unit. So it's not a children's home, it's not a residential home, but it will be a tool that will allow a child, a young person, to have a residential stay for a period of time, which will then allow us to have a really intense therapeutic support to that individual child and their family to enable them hopefully to return home or to return to an appropriate placement. So that development is something that we're really obviously invested in, but we believe it is the right thing for Denbighshire and the right direction of travel for children's services.
Can I just ask then, Nicola, if I may, Chair, if I could just ask that on this residential stay, it's to assess the child's and family's needs to move on. What cost will that be, Nicola? Is that
within us all costs?
Yes.
Well, the therapeutic team, the multidisciplinary team that we already have in place. So that's from our existing staff team, and we've had some additional resources to that team funded from Welsh Government monies. In terms of the build, the capital build money is coming from Welsh Government capital, and the ongoing running costs are something that we are looking to, we're working on at the moment because it's not built yet, but we're working on that at the moment. So there will be running costs to that, which we will share with Conwy and Betsy Cadwallader University Health Board.
Thank you. Thank you. Sorry, Nicola, for interrupting. It was just that I wondered how it would the stay at the assessment centres, because that will be quite an expense for the child to fulfil his need or their needs and the families. But thank you for that. Sorry, I interrupted you.
Anne, do you want to pick up the daycare issue?
Yeah, okay. So obviously over the last couple of years, a lot of your daycare provisions been closed because of the COVID situation. And we've obviously tried to find other activities and ways of engaging people and making sure that that social isolation and loneliness is addressed. Moving forward, or since the introduction probably of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, it's very much about trying to achieve people's outcomes and what they want. So a lot of that is trying to get people engaged in local community activities as well as, you know, daycare. So if daycare is a provision they want, we have still got some daycare provision across the county. Probably not as much as we had previously, because as I say, a lot of that is trying to get people engaged in other community activities. But we do still have the provision of daycare. Certainly in the main towns across the county. Does that answer that, Joan? And I think moving forward, we would obviously review the need and demand. If we needed more, then we could always look to source it if we needed it. But at the moment, it does meet the demand that we've got. So
we're not commissioning any?
We've got some that we already have. So we've got some provision, as I say, in the main towns, but we've not got any plans to commission any new at the moment. But if that demand was there, that's something that we would review. But a lot of people, you know, we try and get people involved in other community activities as well, if that's relevant to them. It depends what that the individual wants. So again, it's trying to achieve outcomes for individuals. And for some it is daycare, but for others it's not. So it's very much, you know, demand led.
Indeed. Who is doing the assessment, Anne?
So when we meet, when individuals come into social services, we have social workers and occupational therapists who do assessments at that front end to determine what provision people need, and that is reviewed ongoing. You know, we do ongoing reviews with people. It's not just what you need as you first join us, but we continue to review what people need. So that assessment is ongoing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Right, thank you. I've got Emrys who wants to come in, and then Bobby. Okay.
Diolch yn fawr. Okay, diolch yn fawr, Cadeirydd.
Question. Chair. A question regarding home education and a question about dementia. That's what I have. Elective home education. I suppose it looks as if this has increased quite a bit during the COVID period. Does Denbighshire County Council have a register of children who receive home education but by choice rather than having to have home education? And the second question, what are the safety steps in place to ensure that children who receive home education have the same protection as pupils who attend education centres? Those are the educational questions. I'll ask another question as well, if I may, about dementia. Early stages of dementia. Work underway is what it says in the report, and I'm asking, could you elaborate as to what the nature of this work is, and is it possible for us to know when people are diagnosed with dementia? Quite often it be quite late in the stage of the condition. What are the conditions in place in order to get an early diagnosis, if possible, please?
Do you want me to pick up the elective
Yes,
home
please,
education
Jane.
question? We do keep a sort of a list of children where the parents have decided they want to home educate their children, and so we do have a running list of those children that are being educated that way, and that's primarily due to the statutory duty that parents have to educate their children and allow their children to access education or provide it by another means. Now, in terms of sort of the safety checks there, that is a difficult question, because then they are not getting the same level of visibility as a child who's attending school regularly. So I'm not 100% clear on how we manage that in education, but I know that it's been an area that's been developing because of previous child practice reviews have identified that as an issue. Where we stand today, though, I haven't got a current update.
I think it's fair to say that, you know, as a local authority, with schools and governing bodies, we manage children's education and ensure policies, procedures, safeguarding, etc. are in place. In an individual's own family home, we don't have the rights or any legal responsibilities to do that. What we do have, though, is the ability to check a child is receiving the education provision that is required. And we also have responsibilities, along with other colleagues, to ensure a child's health and well-being is maintained. But, you know, I think it's fair to say most home educated children and their families, you know, have no concerns. So, you know, like any other family, why would local authorities go knocking on the door unless concerns were raised? So we do have staff who are responsible for working and supporting families who choose to electively educate their children at home. But as James said, it's very difficult if they're not in a school setting. We don't necessarily have sight of that child, and it has been a concern directors of social services have raised, as has the Children's Commissioner for Wales. But it is a family's right to do that.
Okay, ddod yn ôl.
Okay,
in relation
to the dementia question and the early stages of dementia. So obviously that's a joint work between us and health, because obviously, you know, the diagnosis has to happen through through the health services. But we have now got a team of dementia social care practitioners. So where we think somebody's got a diagnosis of dementia or are going through a diagnosis of dementia, then we've got dementia social care practitioners who will work specifically and are trained specifically to work with people that have got dementia or as I say, are in that early stages and waiting on diagnosis. I think there's still work to be done to improve that, and I think there's quite a lot of work to be done to probably educate about getting people, you know, that early diagnosis as soon as possible. So whilst we're on a pathway to it, I still think there's more work to be done, but certainly we've got an increased amount of resources looking at, you know, working with people with dementia than we've had previously. And there's much more awareness now with dementia, isn't there? You know, we've got dementia-friendly services, we've got dementia-friendly towns within Denbighshire. But it's definitely through our joint working with health and that partnership work to try and get that diagnosis done as soon as possible.
Yes. So that is the work that's underway in that aspect. Then.
There is work ongoing, but I think there's more work to be done to get it where it needs to be.
To come out. Just a quick reaction, if I may, to the response to my previous question about the education. If before standing in front of the classroom of involved with pupils, other people's children, I had to be checked officially, as we all teachers, etc. Anybody who deals with children have to. I understand the difficulties of getting into people's homes for safeguarding, and I understand also that most children pupils will be safe in their own homes. Unfortunately, there will always be exceptions, and those are the ones that would be of concern, and those are the ones that will actually drive policy in the end.
Can I come in on the back of the education, if I may?
Yes, I had you down for coming in next to you, so carry on, yeah.
Thank you. Just to come back on Emrys's query there, the difficulty is that the Welsh legislation, the Welsh law, is what prevents us from having more control about education at home. So that is the challenge that the local authority have got. But having discussed this with fellow cabinet members around Wales, I think Denbighshire have a very good understanding of the numbers and information regarding home education children, and therefore I think we're in quite a good position, is that we have a relationship with a high percentage of them, and we have an understanding helping them set exams, etc. Regarding safeguarding, I think Nicola and Bobby will probably remember this. I think there was an audit on payments to families to help them with situations with children, and the audit was flagged because we hadn't CRB'd their parents before making the payment. Well, you know, I think the assurance around in Denbighshire is that we have a very good children's service. We have a very good referral relationship, and that from the educational side of schools and also the public. And we were fortunate enough during lockdown to see our referrals actually decrease because our relationships were that strong across the piece. So I just want to give you some assurances that the safeguarding processes that we have in place for children in general is good, and we continue to keep our relationship strong with those parents. Yeah.
Thank you, Bobby.
Sorry, Jeanette, I just put my hand up a while back thinking it was coming to an end, and I just wanted to make a couple of points, but I'll do it anyway. I just wanted to flag up that there is a much greater emphasis now from the RPB on children, and to that effect, on the 15th of March, the RPB is actually launching a children's subgroup, which will focus even more intensely on children and young people and their families. I've been on the RPB for several years now, well, since its inception. And we've focused a lot on adult services and adult care, and they are moving towards more of a focus on children and young people. So I think that is a good thing, and it's reflected in your questions, because I can hear a lot of the questions coming out of the assessment population needs is about children. And just to say what Joan actually said before me, is that the document is live and additions will be made as we go along, and we are getting a more and more comprehensive knowledge of people across the region, and across Denbighshire as years go by to help us work out how best to deal with whatever situations people have in life. So it was, you know, I'm not asking a question or anything. I'm just sort of filling in a few gaps that I've been thinking about as people have been asking their questions and hearing the answers.
Oh, thank you, Bobby. Can I just ask a quick question? I noticed on a few pages, but on page 130 at the top, I know that we've established that people want to live in their own homes longer. But does that mean, you know, could that be why people are not getting out and about because of daycare drop-in centres? How are we fixed with that? Because we no longer have our own within Denbighshire, but we was going out to private. How are they being run? The daycare drop-in centres.
Yep. So as I say, we've still got daycare centres across the county. I think, yeah, they're mostly run by external organisations. We haven't seen a drop or a significant increase in numbers attending that. And I think, you know, people living longer in their own homes is about trying to keep people independent as long as possible. And that's goes back to what I was saying to Joan's question. You know, we try and engage people with their communities as much as possible as well, and other community activities that are going on. So whilst daycare might be right for some people, for others it's not. And we're trying to be as innovative and creative as possible to help people achieve the outcomes that they want to achieve. And if they want to do something a bit different, then we try and work with them to achieve that. So it's very much led by the individual now as to where we go, whereas maybe previously we had more limited choices of what people could do, and it was, you know, daycare was maybe just one of them, whereas now we really sit and try and understand what matters to that individual and what it is they want to achieve, and how is that best done to suit them. So I think we take a much more personalised approach than we've maybe done previously.
Oh, thank you.
And that's through the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. But that's where we're at, Joan. So I hope that kind of clarifies it a bit for you.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that all these people are staying in their own homes.
Yeah.
Are not.
And can I just add in there, Jeanette?
Yeah.
Jeanette,
Yes.
you know, it's been so difficult over the last 2 years, after what we've been encouraging, and not only just encouraging, but seeing happen over the years before that. The pandemic almost set us back because people were not able to socialize and do all the things that make life worth living. And so gradually edging people back into that situation, you know, is taking place now, slowly but surely. But as Anne says, there is so much more on offer now in different ways, completely different ways to what we've been used to in the past. And just on dementia, can I just mention that our CRTs also include the CRTs being the teams that look after people in their home situation, also include dementia practitioners as well. And as you all know, we've had lots of trouble recruiting over the past couple of years, and we are short of staff. But when it was all set up and going, it was really working so well. And I hope that before long we'll be back in that situation again.
Oh, that's good news, Bobby. Thank you. Anybody else? All questions asked? Okay, thank you. So we can go now to the recommendations on page 15. And the recommendations: to discuss, comment and recommend the publishing of the North Wales Regional Population Needs Assessment. And I think, for one, it's very in-depth, and I'm really pleased with this report. So thank you for those who've contributed. Can I have a proposer?
Councillor Ambrose has just proposed.
Seconder? Reese? Thank you very much. Everybody happy with that? Just raise your hands. Right, Thanks very much. So now we go over to Rhian. The scrutiny work programme, Rhian.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, this is your usual and your unusual, if you like, forward work programme report, because you'll see in Appendix 1 the committee's forward work programme as it is, and you'll also note that the next meeting, which was supposed to be on the 7th of April, is not being held due to the pre-election period. So in effect, this is your last meeting of this council's term of office. There are items on the forward work programme for the new committee to pick up from the summer onwards, and at the last scrutiny chairs and vice chairs group meeting, they added one item for the autumn, and that relates to partnership working in mental health. So which will be a really important item with the focus on mental health at the moment. But otherwise, I haven't got anything else to report to you. I don't know if members have got any questions.
Could I just ask whether it is appropriate or not? But I think that we should be looking at the new Alexandra Hospital. It's been 7 years now in the making, if you like. This is we are going into the 8th year, and we don't seem to have moved forward very, very much at all. We've been told the money was there. We're just waiting for a business plan. We're just waiting, whatever stage we get at, we're always waiting for something. So I wonder, could we put that onto the Forwards Works programme so that, and I'm not anticipating, we can never, the electorate are very fickle. We never know how our elections will do. So when we return, it might be a completely different council with different members, but I don't want us to lose the momentum. Well, it's not really a momentum, is it? It's just never moved forward. But I don't want us to lose that this is something that we should be pursuing vigorously in the new council, because we have waited for it for that long. So I wonder, could we put that onto the Forwards Works programme at some stage in the early months of the new council? Thank you, Chair.
Jeanette, could I just come in briefly there, or Rhian?
Yeah, I was just going to say that there is a process for putting something on the forward work programme, which is if you complete that form in Appendix 2, we can then, take it to the scrutiny chairs and vice chairs group, and then they'll decide if it goes on the forward work programme. Any items does have to go through that process, but please fill one in, send it to me, and then we'll have it ready then for the new council.
Just briefly, Jeanette, I think Joan's been very generous saying 7 years. It's more like 14 years, double that it's been on the cards. And when I first heard about it, it was going to be up and built and ready by 2017 and ready for use. So I think you're quite right to query what's happening. But what I do know is, because obviously I've queried this at the highest level I can, in terms of North Wales, and that's the CEO of the Health Board and the chair of the Health Board. And they have written to Welsh Government, who've had the business case for in excess of 3 or 4 months, and haven't actually, and apparently they are reviewing their capital projects. So, Nicola and I are going to follow up with a note of our own, aren't we, Nicola? We haven't done it yet. We were going to do it a fortnight ago. I don't know whether she's still here, but we're going to follow it up because it, as you say, Joan, has been far too long. And we want to know what the hold up is. But it is definitely in Welsh Government. And can I say, I miss Anne Jones, because we could have nagged her, and we haven't got Anne to nag. And I did try Geraint, but I didn't get any much of a response. So that's in brackets and probably shouldn't have said it really. That's naughty of me. But she was someone we could contact on things like this. Anyway, so it's cross fingers and watch this space, and you're quite right to try and get it on the work programme.
Thank you. I am being generous because I'm only going back to when we were told it was really on the cards and it was going to happen, and that I think we're going into the 8th year of that, and that was when we were told the money was there, it was on the works programme, and there had been a business plan submitted to Welsh Government, and that was 7 years ago. All the other years that we anticipated that we're going to get a replacement hospital was, we talked about it for a long time, but the money was dedicated to this scheme, and the Welsh Government was signed up to it. So it really is frustrating, isn't it? If they're going to pull the plugs, I'd rather them say that they're going to pull the plugs, you know, rather than just have it hanging on and people waiting and saying it's going to happen. So I thank you for that, Bobby, and hope you do keep pushing along and trying to get a determination from the government.
As long as I'm here, I'll keep nagging.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Joan, and thanks, Bobby. I'm sure you will be doing your best. I know over the years you've been campaigning for it, and it's got to be said in our minutes of many meetings we've had of partnership scrutiny, we've had Betsy Cadwallader come and promises everything, and it's just not happened. So good luck with that. And Joan, if you want me to fill in a form on your behalf while I'm here,
oh, that would be good.
I can
Please.
do that.
Would you? That
today.
would be kind.
And sign it in your name.
That would be kind. Thank you.
Okay.
Don't put any money down, will you?
We'll hopefully, on the conclusion of business, I don't think there's anything more we can do today. Yeah, I can't see any hands up for anybody else wanting to have any feedback.
Chair, can I just come in?
Nicola, you can come in.
Yeah. I just wanted to say from CET and from officers, it's been an excellent scrutiny committee during this term. I think we've had some excellent debates and discussions. As a committee, you've challenged officers, held officers to account appropriately, but really pursued the right and proper issues. So from officers, I'd like to thank you as chair and also all of the committee for the scrutiny. Diolch.
Oh, thanks very much, Nicola.
Hear, hear.
And likewise, I'd like to thank all the members of this committee for the support they've actually given to scrutinising lots of issues, and particularly for supporting me personally. And I'm very grateful for that. So thanks very much. And I wish you all the best in the elections and hope to see all of you back next term, should we say. Merrick, I know you want to come in. Can you make it very briefly?
Iawn, Madam Cadeirydd, a diolch yn fawr. Madam Chair, and thanks very much for the opportunity. Could I thank you for allowing me to come in so often in many committees where I've been observing, and I thank you for that. I wonder whether the Labour group could put pressure on the South Wales Labour group to get information and funding with regards to the Alexandra Hospital. It's been dragging on and we've had promises, excellent promises, but we're not moving any further. Thanks to Councillor Butterfield for raising that. Thank you.
Thank you, Merrick. Thanks again, everybody, and all the best for now. But we'll now.
Okay, diolch yn fawr.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye, everyone.